They don't work very well some days. But anyway, but we're here to have a briefing on human rights in the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Let me begin by saying that no one is opposed to trade. We trade with the entire world. So when supporters of so-called free trade argue that critics or people who raise concerns are opposed to trade, that's simply ridiculous. That's a red herring. What we need to discuss more intently are the terms and likely consequences of new trade agreements. Do they improve the lives and livelihoods of a nation's workers? Do they improve the quality of life of the majority of citizens? Are they fair to minorities, women, LGBT, children, and other vulnerable groups who often are the victims of abuses by state or criminal networks? I'm a strong advocate for human rights. I believe it is always in the best interest of the United States for human rights to be at the very center of our policy decisions, domestically and globally, and that includes trade. And I worry when, as is so often the case, the idea of free trade gets to trump U.S. law and international law on human rights. I don't believe that the U.S. and international rules or regulations on trade should be given higher status and priority than our obligations to comply with international law and standards of human rights. When it comes to human rights, we have also signed numerous treaties, conventions, and covenants, as well as incorporated them into U.S. law. I recognize that in the TPP, there are to date the strongest worker rights protections in the case of Vietnam. That's a good thing. It shows we're moving in the right direction. But as we have seen with Colombia, implementing these requirements is not easy. It requires constant pressure. In Colombia, it has meant sustained pressure and advocacy on the part of U.S. and Colombian unions, labor rights groups, NGOs, members of Congress, and the Department of Labor. USTR would have walked away long ago if not for the persistent pressure by these groups and U.S. agencies. Even the State Department has too often stood by silently, letting others do the heavy lifting on worker protections and labor rights. I have no reason to believe that things will be any different with Vietnam or Malaysia and Brunei. Other TPP countries like Mexico and Singapore with significant human rights abuses are not even held to the Vietnam standard. So I look forward to the panel's presentations, not just on what the human rights problems in the TPP countries are, but how might trade in general, and the TPP specifically, be used to leverage and improve human rights and labor rights landscape. Or what opportunities did we allow to pass when negotiating the TPP, which we need to revisit in some future negotiations. So now it's my pleasure to introduce our distinguished panel. John Sifton, Asia Advocacy Director with Human Rights Watch. T. Kumar, International Advocacy Director at Amnesty International USA. Lisa Hogarth, the Executive Director of the Latin America Working Group, and David Abramowitz, Managing Director of Humanity United. And so, John, I think we're going to begin with you, and look forward to your presentation.
Thank you. I'm going to use my time to focus on the macroscopic theory of change that the U.S. administration has with respect to the Trans-Pacific Partnership and how it's supposed to impact labor rights and human rights of the countries that have signed on. And obviously I'm focusing on the countries which have more significant labor rights problems. I think those of you who are from the labor rights movement would probably say that every country in the world has labor rights problems, but let's be honest, some have more serious problems than others. And of the countries that have signed the TPP, two that stand out among many others are Vietnam and Malaysia. And we'll hear also about Mexico. I'll touch briefly on Brunei, but I don't mean to suggest that other countries don't have labor rights problems, obviously they do. The theory of change for a country like Vietnam, the administration essentially has embraced, is that by signing this agreement, Vietnam will obligate itself to change its laws and change its practices and improve labor rights. And the reason that'll happen essentially is because they want access to markets, they want the benefits that come from signing this economic agreement, and so therefore they will do something which is not in their interest, because they are a one-party, non-democratic state. They will do something that is not in their interest, i.e. allow free trade unions, loosen up their laws that restrict labor organizing activities and all of that, so that they can get these benefits. 5 years ago, approximately, then incoming U.S. Ambassador to Vietnam, David Shear, who's now at the Pentagon, told Human Rights Watch, I don't think he'd mind, this was a private meeting, but I don't think he'd mind us saying this. Basically told us, look, I've been asked to go out there and help negotiate strategic partnership, military-to-military better engagement, and help the U.S. Trade Representative push the U.S. Trade, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And we're going to use these agreements and this leverage to make Vietnam improve, not just its labor rights within the context and the four corners of the agreement, but their overall human rights record. Political prisoners, and it's a repressive state, it's not a democratic state. So that was the theory of change. What we see here 5 years later is that almost none of that happened. What did happen is the U.S. Trade Representative negotiated a side agreement called the Consistency Plan with Vietnam. It's a side agreement to the labor chapter. And essentially this Consistency Plan obligates Vietnam to do all kinds of good things vis-a-vis its law. Repeal problematic restrictions that make it illegal to form trade unions, repeal other provisions that are problematic for the labor rights movement, amend the labor law to allow free trade unions to exist, create institutions which will allow those institutions to bring complaints when they're being crushed. In other words, create the infrastructure for a labor rights movement. That's part two. Part one is the preamble. Part two. Okay? Part two of the consistency plan. I strongly urge you to take a look at it. Part three of the labor consistency plan for Vietnam then talks about implementation, what Vietnam needs to do to implement those legal changes. And this is where it gets complicated. It's easy enough to determine, just from looking and asking and going to Hanoi and talking to the government, whether or not they've amended their laws, repealed problematic laws, they've done those things. That's just paper. You change words on a piece of paper. It's easy enough to determine whether that has happened or not. But how do you determine whether they've implemented those changes? How do you determine that they've created institutions and are allowing unions to come into being? And also, over what time period are you going to make that determination? Are you going to see, they create a labor ministry office that allows unions to bring complaints? Okay, the office gets created on day one. Is that implementation, or do you have to wait a month or a year? These are determinations that need to be made over time. But there's no time frame vis-a-vis many of those implementations. They will tell you there is a time frame for a particular implementation, which is allowing labor federations to come into being. This is a very complicated issue I don't want to get into. So there is a time frame for one particular part of the implementation. But by and large, most of the implementations in the U.S.-Vietnam Consistency Plan, there's no real time limit, which means that the U.S. government essentially just decides when Vietnam has implemented or not the Consistency Plan, and then the agreement comes into force. And based on everything I know about the U.S. government, as a writ large, U.S. Trade Representative, State Department, everything else, I have serious concerns, and Human Rights Watch has serious concerns over whether that determination will be made objectively and correctly. I think more likely what will happen is that all the laws will be implemented, all the laws will be repealed or changed. And by the way, whether that happens or not, I don't even know. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that happened. The National Assembly of Vietnam changed its problematic laws. I think right about then, the U.S. Trade Representative would start very quickly talking about the few steps to implementation, and then you talk about the entry into force of the agreement. In other words, they would move too quickly. That's concern number one. Returning to Malaysia, it's the same model. Malaysia has a consistency plan too, and we pretty much have the same concerns with it. The details are different. Unlike Vietnam, which basically the biggest problem is that they don't allow free trade unions. They don't allow any trade unions. The problems in Malaysia with respect to its laws and unions to some degree, but also its laws vis-a-vis migrants, forced labor, trafficking, responding to human trafficking cases, things like that. And there, the laws are less important, although Malaysia should fix them. It's more implementation. And implementation in Malaysia doesn't so much mean setting up institutions as using existing institutions, especially the police, to arrest and prosecute human traffickers and people that are engaged in forced labor. And given Malaysia's abysmal record on this front, and I direct you to Human Rights Watch's website to look at the reporting we've done on Malaysia and migrant labor, we are not very confident that Malaysia will implement the changes that are demanded by the consistency between very well. So in both cases, these are just, so there you go. Vietnam, Malaysia, those are the two big consistency plans I wanted to talk about. In both cases, the concern I have is that if the Trans-Pacific Partnership were to be ratified by the relevant states, this idea, this theory of change that the U.S. has, that the agreement will essentially compel Vietnam and Malaysia and other countries to improve their labor record, is highly problematic and should be questioned by anybody, any member who's considering whether to support the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The question that ought to be asked, members ought to be asked in the administration is, how does this work exactly? What's the cause and effect? Vietnam does what and why? And what's to say that they won't just slip through the cracks by doing a minimal amount of implementation? And then, last question, and I'd really like to just leave it there, it's better to have a Q&A. Last question, once the agreement comes into force, what assurances do we have that the United States government will enforce the labor agreement, the labor chapter, and the side agreement, the consistency agreement, if Vietnam backtracks or fails to continue to implement reforms? They keep telling you, the administration keeps telling all of us, civil society, members of Congress, the whole world, the media, they keep saying the labor chapter is enforceable, the agreement is enforceable. Well, that's true, in theory, it's enforceable, but that doesn't mean it's going to be enforced. It's very hard to get the US government to enforce labor chapters in any agreement. In the CAFTA, it took, 7 years for at least of petitions by the labor movement and dozens of slain, murdered labor activists in Guatemala before finally the U.S. Trade Representative filed a case, and that's still percolating through arbitration to enforce the labor chapter. The fact that this track record is so bad, and the fact that we don't even know who's in the next administration, whether the administration isn't even interested in enforcing labor agreements, should cause members to ask hard questions about the difference between enforceable and enforced. So I want to leave it there, but basically say, like, look, they come in, they say it every time. I think President Obama even said it in his speech about the Trans-Pacific Partnership out in Washington State. This labor chapter is enforceable. Well, great, but will it be enforced? And why should we believe that it will be enforced? Those are the hard questions that members should be asking. I'm going to say one last thing, and then I think Kumar has a few things. There's another little theory of change, which I neglected to mention, that the State Department often points out, which is that the Trans-Pacific Partnership can be used to leverage other human rights changes in Vietnam. Like, in other words, members can go and tell the Vietnamese embassy here, or they can go on a hotel to Hanoi and tell the government themselves. They can say, hey, I'm thinking about supporting the Trans-Pacific Partnership. I'm not sure, but frankly, your overall human rights record is so bad that I'd like to see some progress on other areas, political prisoners, releasing political prisoners, changing your religion laws so that you're not requiring churches to register, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, the U.S. Embassy knows exactly what the asks are. They always tell members to ask. I encourage members to do that. I mean, whether the Trans-Pacific Partnership passes or not, use it. Use it as a cudgel to hit the administration, hit the regime in Hanoi and say, yeah. Yeah. I'm done.
No, let me finish.
I'm sorry. Congress.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, you're right in the midst of a good point. Go for it.
So that's the final point. If you go to Hanoi, you say, please, maybe I'll support the Trans-Pacific Partnership, that you have to show good faith. You have to start releasing political prisoners. You have to show that you're serious about human rights reform. Before I'm going to do anything.
So Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro just showed up.